It's 2016 and if you're a British or Irish citizen, you've got a big decision to make, a decision to remain or leave the EU. In this video, I'm going to tell you why the UK should leave and maybe influence your vote. There's also a video I've made on why the UK should remain inside the EU, and as well, if you need to catch up, there's a video on the EU referendum. As you can see, I'm very prepared. Let's get started. Why should you vote to leave? Well, there's many reasons for this, and it's not as complicated as you might think. So back in 1973, when the UK joined the EU, it wasn't the organisation that we know today. Back then it was actually called the EEC, or the European Economic Community. Now we had a referendum and decided we wanted to join. Now you might ask why? Well, it's because by joining, we had access to a common market, meaning that a business in Coventry could sell to a shop in Paris without the complications like trade taxes, also known as tariffs. This partnership worked great up until the 90s, in which it changed from a common market to a political union. And this is where my first argument begins. Leaving would return national sovereignty and better democracy. Currently the EU imposes laws, regulations and orders that dictate how hot your toaster is, that if a mass murderer gets less jail time. What's scary about this is that 53% of laws and regulations are passed by the EU, leaving 47% decided by our national parliament. Now that's not the scary part, this is. For that 53%, we only have 73 politicians representing 880,000 people. For the 47%, we have 650 accountable politicians, also known as MPs, representing 70,000 citizens. If we left the EU, it would mean we'd have a more accountable and better democracy, because 100% of our laws would be decided by politicians accountable to us locally, rather than to a population the size of the city of Glasgow. Now if you're still convinced that the UK has a strong say in the EU, think again. The number of MEPs across the EU isn't shared equally. Ireland, for example, only needs 400,000 citizens for each politician/vote, while the UK needs 880,000 people, meaning an Irish citizen has double the voting power of a British citizen. It gets even worse in Malta, where one voter is worth 12 British votes at the European Parliament. Now I must be nitpicking, right? Not at all. The UK is the second most underrepresented country in the EU, meaning your vote could be worth more if you lived in 90% of other countries inside the EU. Second argument, leaving wouldn't damage international relations or our national defence. Now you'll hear a lot of EU supporters proclaim that the UK being a small island wouldn't be taken seriously in the international arena. This is wrong, and here's a list why. So I have to split this into three categories: relations, defence and the global economy. For relations, the UK is a permanent member of the United Nations and can't be removed without its consent, meaning that even if it left the EU, we would still have the ability to veto UN resolutions, meaning that we will continue to be a big player internationally. For defence, we are a NATO member, and this means that even if we got attacked after we left, though massively unlikely, the European nations would be obligated to still protect us as fellow allies under NATO. For the global economy, we are a free trade organisation member and a G7 member, both meaning that we will continue to have a say on how to tackle the world's largest economic issues. Which leads me on to my third argument, which is that leaving could benefit the economy long term. Now I'm not naive. I know the UK could lose out in the short term, and if we leave, trading could be affected and that could recess the economy. But there are many reasons why leaving could be beneficial. Reason number one, the EU is having terrible economic issues right now. The Eurozone isn't growing as fast as they would like, and the last thing they need is the UK to stop trading, meaning that if we leave, we'll have a strong position to negotiate a trade agreement. Reason number two, let's say that the trade agreement doesn't work and the EU decides to put a tariff on the UK. Surely the extra cost of trading with Europe will cause companies to leave. Not at all. The reason is that the UK government is currently planning to reduce corporation tax, meaning that any extra export cost will be covered by the reduction in taxes. Reason number three, the EU's laws and regulations damage productivity, and here's the statistics to show it. For every pound spent by business meeting EU regulation, they gain 2p in profit. For regulation made in Britain, for every pound they spend, a business gains £1.35 in profit. That means that the UK is 6,000% more effective at making laws. Reason number four. Let's be completely realistic. If a Chinese communist state like China can manage to garner business from Europe and manage to export to Europe, the UK leaving the EU shouldn't be that much of an issue. It's unreasonable to think that the UK would find it impossible to live outside the EU and not retain business. Argument number four, immigration. Being in Europe means that we must allow any EU national the right to live inside the UK. If we left, this right could be provoked, meaning that immigration could be reduced, putting a stop to unskilled immigrants. It would also mean that we could retain our borders and stop the loophole of foreign citizens gaining citizenship in other countries and then moving to the UK. Argument number 5. We would literally save 8 billion in membership fees, and that's even taking into account how much the EU gives to us, meaning that we could double the police or do something whenever David Cameron actually wants. So that's it. Why you should vote to leave. Share this video if you believe that we'd be better out of Europe, but also watch my video on why we should remain. Don't be blinded to one issue. See all the arguments and make a decision, an informed decision. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you want more interesting videos on issues that make the world tick. Thank you for your time.